20th, 2024 Parish Planning and Zoning Board meeting. Would you all please stand while Coach Williams says the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Lord, we come thanking you for another blessed day. Forgive us our sins and our shortcomings and make us fit to serve. Thank you for the past year that you blessed this board, we bless this staff. We ask a special blessing upon those who have served in the past year. We ask that blessing upon those who to serve this year. And we thank you for those who have come seeking our hopes of whatever petition they bring before us. We ask that blessing upon this entire staff and pray for those who suffer throughout this land and forgive us again of our sins and our trespasses. Lord, that we might bless those who have come seeking our help tonight, that the Holy Spirit guide and lead us, that we might do that which is right in our sight. This we offer as our prayer this day, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Just pretend.
Good save. Here we go.
Just hold it.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Especially about what you're saying.
Stephanie, would you please call the roll?
Chair Julia Dickerson,
Present.
Vice Chair Sharon Galicia,
Here.
Miss Latricia Cobb,
Here.
Mr. Keith DeBrock,
Here.
Mr. Kirk Smith,
Here.
Miss Janelle Hyatt,
Here.
Mr. Art Little,
Here.
Mr. Jake Porche, he's not here, Mr. Carl Vincent,
Here.
Mr. LaSalle Williams,
Yes.
Miss Deanne Winey,
Here. Thank you. This is an 11-member board. It will take a majority of those members present to grant or deny any request heard tonight. The chair will refrain from voting unless that vote might affect the outcome. The meeting will be conducted with me reading the requests from the agenda. The planning staff will give a presentation and report their recommendations. If the applicant would like to add to the staff's presentation, or if someone from the audience has comments, please come to the microphone and state your name, address, and the nature of your request. All persons wishing to speak, other than the applicants, need to fill out a blue request to appear form located in the back of this room. The form must be given to a staff member prior to the reading of the agenda item. As required by the board's bylaws, in all cases, the proponents will be limited to 10 minutes. Opponents will be granted 10 minutes as well, with each speaker allowed no more than 3 minutes. I recommend that a spokesperson be selected if there's a large group wanting to speak on the same agenda item. If 4 or more speaker request forms are submitted, the time allowed for individual speakers will be limited based upon the number of forms submitted. The chair has the right to limit speakers who present redundant information or personal attacks. In unique situations, the chair may extend or the board may vote to extend the time allotted to speakers. After discussion, the board will vote on each request. I will announce the decision of the board after the vote. The variants and exceptions are final tonight. The rezoning cases will go before the police jury for final action on Thursday, February the 22nd, 2024. This meeting is being filmed by the Calcasieu Parish Government Channel and can be viewed on Wednesday and Thursday following the meeting. For additional run dates, check the website at www.calcasieu.gov. Channel 5 in Lake Charles, Sulphur, Moss Bluff, Westlake, Vinton, DeQuincy, and Gillis. Channel 99 in Carlos and Grand Lake. Please either turn off or silence all electronic devices. Take appropriate action to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the December 12th, 2023 Planning and Zoning meeting. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Little made the motion, and I need a second.
Second.
Ms. Winey seconded. Minutes approved. Take appropriate action on the following application. 455 Mims Road in Ward 4. Variance to allow an accessory building to exceed the maximum square footage. Allow 2,000 square feet, requesting 3,200 square feet. Applicant Lonnie Wing, ETUX, VAR 0242. I will entertain a motion for approval with the condition. Coach Little made the motion. I need a second. Ms. Hyatt seconded the motion. Ms. Tunn?
This property is in Westlake on Mims Road and encompasses 1 acre of land. The applicant is requesting an accessory building to exceed the maximum square footage. The accessory building will accommodate the applicant's personal items. To move forward with this project, the applicant will need approval from the board. Because minimal impacts are to be expected, the staff recommends the request be granted with the following condition: that the development adhere to the site plan on file with the Division of Planning and Development, provided that the director or designee may authorize adjustments to the site plan in light of technical or engineering considerations discovered during development.
Okay. If the applicant is present and would like to speak, please come to the podium at this time. Okay. There's not any opposition. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Take appropriate action on the following application: 711 Murrabell Road in Ward 3. Exception to allow residential development, manufactured home, applicant Troy Kearns, EX 1123-0189. I will entertain a motion for approval with conditions. Ms. Cobb made the motion. Ms. Hyatt seconded. Mrs. Tunn.
This property is in South Lake Charles at 711 Murrabell Road. This case was deferred from the December 12th planning meeting. Again, the applicant intends to place a manufactured home on the property as a permanent dwelling for personal use. The parish code requires an exception by the board to allow manufactured homes within single-family residential zoning district. Because the proposed development is not consistent with the character of the area, the staff recommends the request be denied. Should the board grant the request, the staff recommends the following conditions: that the development adhere to the site plan on file with the Division of Planning and Development, provided that the director or designee may authorize adjustments to the site plan in light of technical or engineering considerations discovered during development, and that the manufactured home be skirted prior to utilities being connected. Also, at our December meeting, there was discussion that a manufactured home was recently placed 2 lots from the property in question. After the staff investigated this property, we realized that it is not a manufactured home. It is a modular structure that was placed on the property without permits and not in the correct zone. So therefore, it is not a permitted use building that was put on that property.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Tunn. If the applicant is present and would like to speak, you may please come to the podium at this time. Okay. So these are the two. I don't know if this is the applicant first.
I am not the applicant, but I'm representing him because he's out of state. Is
Could
that
you
okay?
please state your name?
My
and
name is
address
Hunter
for the record?
Sauls. I'm the general manager, Oak Creek Homes in Lake Charles.
Okay, and my name is Sherelle Roberts, and I'm representing Troy Corns also, too.
Okay, thank you.
I brought some handouts for you guys. Just take a look at. It's got some more information about the nature of the house he's getting.
Hey, Ms. Dickerson, as they pass these handouts, we have 1 or 2 blue cards
Two blue
filled out here.
cards.
2 blue cards. We're going to do
One at a time.
okay, 1 at a time and 3 minutes each. Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Sauls, we're going to start with you.
Yeah.
And let you speak for 3 minutes, and afterwards,
Sounds
if you
good.
have anything else to say, Sherry Roberts will let you speak next.
Okay.
Okay.
In that packet, I included just a picture of the house. It's not the exact house, but it's a duplicate of it, so it's going to look exactly the same. The specifications how the home is built, all the technical aspects of it. My company, our brand is associated with building a higher quality manufactured home than you typically find. And I a lot of times in my career, I've had to flout the expectation what people expect out of a manufactured home based on what we build. We build something that's way beyond the minimum code standards for that. The siding itself is going to have a 50-year warranty on it. It's LP Smart Side, which you can get at Home Depot. The shingles themselves are going to have a 25-year warranty. This is a well-built house. It's going to beautify the neighborhood. I can speak to the home. Obviously, I'm the builder. I can't speak to the neighborhood itself, but I went out there, and I really didn't understand what the staff meant by it not being consistent with the neighborhood, because I think there was like 2 or 3 mobile home parks within walking distance. There were manufactured homes on every adjacent street to Mirbell Road, and there was a body shop at the end of the road as well too. I was looking at it, and I deal with these houses day in, day out. I would say that it would fit right in, and it would be once people see it out there, they're gonna recognize that it's a very well built and very beautiful home.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Stiles? Okay. Sherry Roberts, you can speak. I have 2 cards. You may come to the podium and speak at this time if you have anything else to add to it.
Note that.
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Sherelle Roberts, and I'm representing Troy Coins. And I just wanted to, the address is 711 Mirbell Road. So I just wanted to state that I know initially it was denied and he was given 30 days, and then it was extended due to the storm, and then it ended up being 90 days. So basically, he's been waiting that long just to get, know if it's denied or not. However, my question is, has anybody basically stated or contested or objected to the manufactured home being placed on the property?
Is it,
Opposition.
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Does the board have any questions for Ms. Roberts? No? No? Okay. There's not any opposition, so at this time, all in,
Discussion?
discussion. Is there any discussion? Does anybody else have anything they'd like to say? No?
Well, based on the map, the colored map that you had up right there, that is what determines whether we can or can't based on
think so.
the existing ordinance.
Right, so this map is our zoning map, and each color represents a different type zone. The yellow zone you see up there is a single-family residential, where a manufactured home is permitted by exception by this board.
And in looking at what the gentleman pointed out regarding the homes that are circled on the maps we were given, all of those fall either south, well, there's one north, but south and west of this location.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Any other?
Are those on that map, are those manufactured homes? I don't have it in front of me. This map? Yeah, that one. Yes. Oh, those are? Yeah.
There are manufactured homes that were grandfathered in, correct?
These are, the ones on
Like
this
the
map
older
are-
ones, yeah.
Some of these are mobile home parks.
Yeah.
On Mirbell, there are no manufactured homes.
One modular home. Right.
South side.
There's south and southwest,
Okay.
and that's, based on this map, that's the best I can tell.
Okay.
I think that's what we're referring to is this, it's the block face. So the block face is on Mirbell. And of course, there may be other streets, either north or south that may have manufactured homes, depending on if they were there before. I think when we say it's not consistent with what's in that block face. And so that's typically what we mean by that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Crane. Does the board have any other discussion or any other comments? Okay. At this time, Stephanie, let's do a roll call vote.
Mr. Smith?
No.
Ms. Cobb?
Ms. Cobb? No.
Mr. DuBrock?
No.
Ms. Galicia?
Yes.
Ms. Hyatt? Mr. Little?
Yes.
Mr. Vincent?
No.
Mr. Williams? Ms. Winey?
No.
Four in favor, five against.
Okay, so the motion passes.
Fails.
Oh,
Fails.
say it again? Oh, I'm sorry, so the motion fails, excuse me. Okay. Next item on the agenda is take appropriate action on the following application, 2300 Moundaville Street in Ward 4, exception to allow commercial development, reception facility. The applicant, Kendall Broussard, ETUX, EX 1223-0190. I will entertain a motion for approval with conditions. So moved by, a motion made by Mr. Little and seconded by Ms. Hyatt. Ms. Dunn.
This property is in Carlos area at 2300 Moundville Street. The applicant came before the board on December the 12th and was approved to rezone from single-family residential to agricultural. On December 14th, police jury approved the rezoning and removed two conditions: that the reception facilities ingress and egress be limited to Pizza Road, and that screening must be provided. Those two were removed. At this time, the applicant is requesting to utilize the existing 4,000 square foot barn as a reception facility and event venue with indoor and outdoor options. Because minimal impacts are to be expected, the staff recommends the request be granted.
Thank you, Ms. Dunn. If the applicant is present and would like to speak, you may come to the podium at this time. Okay. Does the board have any comments or any discussion?
No, ma'am.
Any questions? Any opposition? There's not any opposition. So all in favor, state aye.
Aye.
The motion passes. I think I'm supposed to hit my gavel. The next item on the agenda, we're going to take appropriate action on the following application, 3049 Smith Ferry Road in Ward 4, exception to allow residential development, manufactured home, applicant U.E. Vincent Jr., ETUX, EX 0124-0191. I'll entertain a motion for approval with condition.
We'll move.
So moved by, motion made by Ms. Cobb. I need a second. Ms. Galicia, second the motion. Mrs. Dunn.
This property is in Westlake and zoned single-family residential. In 2018, this tract was included in a zoning study by the Division of Planning and Development that rezoned certain properties along Smith Ferry Road to the single-family residential zoning. The applicant is requesting to place a manufactured home on the property as a permanent dwelling for his granddaughter. The parish code requires an exception by the board to allow manufactured homes within this zoning district. Because the proposed tract was reclassified to single-family residential in 2018, the staff recommends the request be denied. However, there are manufactured homes within the immediate area that have been replaced, and are existing prior to the zoning study. Should the board grant the request, the staff recommends the following conditions: that the development adhere to the site plan on file with the Division of Planning and Development, provided that the director or designee may authorize adjustments to the site plan in light of technical or engineering considerations discovered during development, and that the manufactured home be skirted prior to utilities being connected. We have also received a written letter of opposition, and you should have a copy of that.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. If the applicant is here this evening and would like to speak, could you please come to the podium? Okay, we do have blue cards for and some against. So is the applicant present? Okay, you may come to the podium at this time, please. And please state your name and your address for the record.
Dickerson, as the applicant approaches, what do we have in favor and opposition? How many?
2 for, 1 against.
Okay. So since this is the applicant, you want to say 4 minutes, then 3 and 3 for
Sounds
the
right.
4?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Gabb. Okay, please state your name.
Diana Vinson, 3049 Smith Ferry Road, Westlake. And we have been on this property for like 30 years. You know, we have seen trailers all around us, mobile homes all around us and everything, and just in 2018. But what we're wanting is, my granddaughter is a single mom with a 4-year-old child, and she needs our help. So if we are able to put that mobile home in our backyard, we are able to help her.
Does anybody have any, I mean, does the board have questions or comments for Mrs. Benson? Nope. Okay, thank you, Ms. Benson.
Okay, thank
Be
you.
seated. We also have a card for, is that Chris Rhodes? You don't, okay, you don't need to speak. Okay, thank you. Okay, at this time, we do have a blue card against, and that's Tiffany Hester. If you could please come to the podium at this time and state your name and address for the record.
Tiffany Hester, 3040 Smith Ferry Road. I'm just here to represent myself, but also potentially the written-in opposition, a neighbor of mine who was unable to make it. I also spoke to one other neighbor, so there's at least 4 of us I know of, unfortunately, who cannot be here, who oppose this. Of course, this is mainly going back to the 2018 here in the minutes of October 18th, 2018, where Hal McMillan put in a motion, and it was seconded by Mr. Andre Point, where they approved and made the motion to not allow mobile homes because it was zoned single family. And I'm hoping that you guys uphold what was decided in 2018. I understand that we would like to help family members. However, this is in place for a reason, and it's to protect the current landowners. And if we, give one exception, when do we stop? So this is, again, 2018. Thereafter, there was a article in the American Press that mentions that the rezoning was done to protect the property values in the area. And then there was complaints from the resident. Again, this is quoted from Hal McMillan in the American Press, that there was complaints from the residents of potential duplexes and potentially mobile home parks that could be built because of the then classification. Now it's been rezoned in 2018, and I wish that you uphold what the decision was made in 2018.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Rhodes. Does the board have any questions for Ms. Rhodes? No comments? Okay. Ms. Vinson, would you like to come back to the podium for any additional comments? Could you, if you're going to speak, you need to come to the podium, please.
He's just asking if Mr. Roach can come and speak on her.
He has the blue card, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
he had
oh,
the-
yes.
Yes.
Yes. That's who I thought was up there. Oh, Tiffany Hester?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, sorry about that.
I'm going to let Mr. Rhodes
Sure,
come up. He has the
absolutely.
thing.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
do I need to stay up here?
No, ma'am, you don't. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I'm Chris Rhodes, 3053 Smith Ferry Road. I'm the residence that is directly on the side of her. And I'm pretty much the only resident that this will affect. And I understand what she's saying about the new zoning coming in. But Allen Seal, if you look, 2 driveways down is pulled trailers, mobile homes out, and put sheds in there for people to rent. And I mean, that is literally 2 driveways down, and then there's another piece of property right there on the other side of the road where he put another shed for a single rent home. So I'm not understanding why it's a big deal. We put a trailer that the only person it's going to affect is me.
Okay. Does the board have any comments or any questions for
Which
Mr.
side are
Rhodes?
you?
You see where the little kick is right there on the top,
North
the north
of
side?
it?
Yes,
Okay.
sir. That's my residence.
Okay.
And the property that
Yeah.
I believe the lady who spoke about opposing it is on the river
Just in case. No, it's okay.
across the street in the woods. And directly on the side of her, if I'm not mistaken, is a mobile home. Which
and
it got damaged during the hurricane. I think they just moved a brand-new mobile home in.
Okay. And Ms. Cobb, did you want?
I think the main reason is that there was a new audience put in, not to have trailers. And since that was put in, if we're going back on our word when we put it in, and then we're going back on our word to say.
I
you can
understand
do
that. They just
So,
moved the mobile home
that's
in
the
on the
main
property
reason
just to the side
for
of her this year.
Not having it.
Okay.
May not be in compliance is the issue.
Okay. So does anyone else have any questions for Mr. Rhodes at this time? No. Thank you, Mr. Rhodes. Okay. Any other comments by the board before we do a roll call vote? Okay. No, ma'am, I'm sorry. No, ma'am. Thank you. Ms. Stephanie, would you please do a roll call vote?
Ms. Galicia?
Yes.
Ms. Hyatt? Mr. Little,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yeah.
Ms. Winey,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
No.
Ms. Cobb,
No.
Mr. DeBrock,
No.
6 in favor, 3 against.
So the motion passes. Okay, on the next item on the agenda is take appropriate action on the following application, 3620 Lakeview Drive in Ward 3, exception to allow a commercial development bed and breakfast. Applicant South Central Land LLC, EX-01240192. I will entertain a motion for approval with condition.
So moved.
Mr. DeBrock made the
Second.
motion. I need a second. Ms. Hyatt seconded the motion. Mrs. Dunn.
This property is off Big Lake Road on Lakeview Drive. The applicant has been utilizing the existing house as a bed and breakfast. Within the mixed residential zoning district, the parish code requires an exception by the board to allow this use. Because minimal impacts are to be expected, the staff recommends the request be granted.
Thank you, Ms. Dunn. Is the applicant present? Would you please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record?
My name is Devin Peterson. My husband and I own 3620 Lakeview Drive. We are McNeese State University graduates. We don't live in Lake Charles currently, but we love Lake Charles. We love spending time here. We love being on the water. So after Hurricane Laura, we bought this property and rebuilt it. It was in disrepair. I mean, needed a full facelift. So we did a lot of work to it, as you can see. We've been using it as an Airbnb, and we take pride in the fact that we can give back to Lake Charles, that we remit our lodging taxes, that we pay our property taxes, and that we give back to our community in that way. Even though we don't live here, we still feel like we're a vital part of the area. Our home is the last home on Lakeview Drive, so we're right on the edge of Big Lake Road, and on that highway, there are other commercial properties that are being used for commercial reasons. Our tenants commonly ask us who they can go fishing with, where restaurants they can use, where they can go to the casinos, so we feel like we really support the local business by having this property used in this way.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Does the board have any comments or any questions for Ms. Peterson? Oh, okay. Thank you. You may be seated. We do have one blue card against, so at this time, will Shelley Bullion please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record?
Before Ms. Bullion speaks,
sir.
she's acting as a spokesperson for a number of people here, so we're going to give Ms. Bullion 5 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shelley Bouillon, and I'm a resident of Deatonville, and I also, like you said, represent numerous people who are in opposition to this application. My address is 3709 Lakeview Drive.
Thank you.
First, I'd like for all the Deatonville residents that are in opposition to this application to please stand up. Thank you. You can see this is very, very important to our neighborhood. Deatonville is really two little streets off of Big Lake Road. It's separated by a canal. It's a very quiet neighborhood. There are more than 40 houses in this neighborhood, and over half of them are owner-occupied 100% of the time, including my own residence, and including one right next door to the applicant's property. They're telling you about property that's not in our subdivision, but our subdivisions are zoned R1 and R2, and everything in there is used for that purpose. The empty lots that they mentioned in their application were used for residential purposes prior to the hurricane, and I expect those homes to eventually come back. It's just been slow out there, as you can imagine. Look, the advent of Airbnb and VRBO stuff has provided a lot of novel issues for community, and we're no exception. These folks are just now seeking a formal application, but they have been using these properties, and there are some other properties in our area, in our neighborhood, that have been used as short-term rentals over the last year. One is directly across the street from my home, and I can assure you it has had a negative impact to the safety and the welfare of the property and the persons in Deatonville. I just want to give you a few examples of the things that we've dealt with that one across the street from our house. These tenants regularly trespass on my property. They're on my wharf, they're on my dock. I come home from work and I find uninvited strangers sitting on the swings underneath my house. They help themselves to my neighbor's swimming pool. They trespass on my property to inspect my boats, my movable property. I've had to install security cameras. I've had to install a fence to separate my property. And we had one night that was pretty rough where a large party happened across the street. It got out of hand. Somebody drove an 18-wheeler down there and put it in the ditch. And this is a small dead-end road. It's not meant for 18-wheelers at all. My neighbor next door, 70-year-old gentleman, went out to help him. My husband went out to help him. It was probably 2 o'clock in the morning to get out there. Instead, he was approached by a group of drunk and threatening men. He was sucker punched. We all ran back in our houses. I'm fairly confident the parties at the other house had weapons. I know I have weapons in my house, but instead we were outgunned. We called the sheriff's department. They showed up 30 minutes later because remember, we're an island. We're in between 2 barge bridges. So they can't just automatically get to us if we have an issue. We take care of ourselves and we take care of our neighbors. So the police basically told us that they could not order the people to vacate the premises without the property owner telling them that they had permission to kick the people out. The property owner didn't answer his phone. So we were stuck watching this all night long. These people were hollering and screaming profanities at us all night because we had called the law. They didn't really care. A couple weeks later, we also discovered that a neighbor down the road, his home had been burglarized the same night that those people were there because the stolen property was found at the rental property's residence. I know that the homeowner next door to this piece of property has issues when there are too many people at that home. It overflows the sewer of that particular property, the applicant's property, and the man, Mr. LeBlanc, that's here, and he lives next door, he has to deal with this. He's called the parish, but it's hard to catch when there aren't 20 people staying in this home. One of the issues here is that they're renting these properties out for below what you could even get a hotel room, but they're triple and quadruple the square footage. So you're packing in 20 or 30 people, so all you're doing with those figures is inviting bachelor parties and drunkenness and intoxication. And look, have a good time. I'm the first one to go have a party, but I don't want things to interfere with my neighbors. When we do that as neighbors, I talk to my neighbor. I tell him what I'm planning. If he has a problem with it, I'm not going to do it. The problem this is creating is we have no control over this. We have no recourse. The lady that just spoke, she's very nice. I don't know her, and this is not personal at all. But like she said, she doesn't live here. She doesn't vote here. She can't just come run out and tell these people, hey, you got to go, this is inappropriate. The best she could do from her home would be make a phone call and hope that they listen to what she said to turn it down or stop aggravating the neighbors. We live on the water. I'm always concerned about the liability. I'm concerned about the liability of the swimming pool. With people just walking around and helping themselves, I don't know if they're looking, I mean, we've had issues that have been reported for thefts, all kind of other things. So,
Ms. Bouillon, your time is up, but you can go ahead and take
I'll close.
10 seconds to close. Thank
So
you.
10 seconds to close. I would like you to know also this property is so old, these subdivisions are so old, there are no restrictions or HOAs that we can go to. You guys are the only thing, the zoning of it being protected is the only thing that's going to protect us from the commercial properties just really taking over. If you approve this one, it's just going to open the door, and we're really going to lose the quiet, sweet nature of the community that we have.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions before, or any comments? Okay.
I have a question for the applicant.
Okay, at this time, we have,
Oh, you
yeah, we're going to go ahead and move. We have 2 blue cards for Craig Peterson. Would you like to come to the podium and make any, speak? And if so, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Craig Peterson. I am the father of the son. Okay, I own the lot to the east of the house. It's empty. It just has a blue boathouse right there. Yeah. I don't have any issues with it or have any complaints from anybody yet. And I'm not 100% sure if all that was on this lot. I don't know for sure, but anyway, that's what I got. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. The next blue card we have is Lucas LaCour. Did I pronounce that correctly? Okay, thank you. Could you please state your name and address for the record?
Thank you. I'm Lucas LaCour. I live at 3636 Lakeview Drive in Deatonville, a couple of doors down from the subject property. And I also own a short-term rental in the neighborhood, so I do have a vested interest, but I live there. And so I just wanted to share really some of the better testimonies about what these things have done. The impact on tourism for our parish is phenomenal. If you could read my guest book, read the messages we get from our guests, people are coming from all over to enjoy our neighborhood. I've been coming there since I was a kid. That's why I live there, because it's a wonderful place. And we have wonderful neighbors, you know, and I love that this isn't a personal thing. We just want what's best for our neighborhood. I do, the short-term rental that I own, I will say, is where there was a problem before. And we learned from that. We changed our policies. We don't allow any parties. We don't allow one-night stays. We make it real clear. It's up in front when you book our property. It's the first thing you see when you walk in. We've had to clearly define the boundaries of our property. But, you know, I want to share what we have there with people all over the world. Last week, we had somebody from Wisconsin who came down, had a great time, and asked about purchasing some property in the area. And so, yes, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars of positive impact to our economy, but more so, you know, we hear a lot about tourism in Calcasieu Parish, a lot. About really the only reason people are coming is for the plants. I can tell you, people visit our property every month from Minnesota, Wisconsin, all over the country to come and enjoy fishing and crabbing, celebrate weddings and birthdays and all of that kind of stuff. And we live there. We don't want any problems. Matter of fact, you know, it behooves me that you would approve a couple of years ago to open up a bar across the street from my house, which we've had to call and tell them to be quiet and people to get off our property. But you know, it's manageable. All of the problems that we have are manageable, and I think it's a win for our parish and for our neighborhood if it's done correctly. And you know, I've got a lot of neighbors here that stood in opposition, but you know how many I've heard from? One. We can work through this. It's very doable, and I think we should. Moving forward, I think it's very possible and healthy for our parish and for our community. I live there, I want what's best, and I hope that you do the same. I'd encourage you to take the recommendation of your staff and to grant this exception to Mr. Peterson. You should have seen this property before he purchased it. Because he could use it as a short-term rental, he was able to rehabilitate that thing in far better condition than it ever was. And I think that's something to consider for the future. So anyway, I just want to share that, encourage you guys to grant the exception. I hope you do. I live there. I love the place, and I think it's a wonderful opportunity if it's done right, and we want to do it right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Would the applicant like to, Mr. Peterson, Ms. Peterson, excuse me, would you like to please come and make any further comments?
We only have 1 minute left.
Quick. I just wanted to make a few points based off of the opposition. Those issues were not at our property. I mean, I think was obvious. We did address the sewer issue. The city came out and they cleared the sewer. It's non-issue because it was cleared appropriately, and we don't live in Lake Charles, but we're not far. We're in Breaux Bridge. It is in our best interest for nothing bad to happen at our property. We're liable if something does happen at our property, and we've invested a lot of money in this property, so it is in our best interest to make sure that nothing bad happens there. I personally manage the Airbnb, and I keep my phone on call all the time for that reason. So thank you so much for hearing us tonight.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, Ms. Winey, I'd like to ask you a question.
So were you operating without an approval?
No, I have the appropriate license, and I remit the lodge taxing every month.
So the entire time you've been operating with approval?
With the approval, we just didn't know that we needed to have this this done, but I do have a license to have the Airbnb. And I submitted that with our paperwork that we applied with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other discussion that the board would like to make, or any comments? Yes, sir, Mr. Little.
And the presentation that this applicant did was very, very good, put it out very good. But she does live in Lafayette, some 80-something miles away. I know this area was destroyed from 2 hurricanes. Most of the people that live there has built them twice since those 2 hurricanes come through there. And it's a very nice neighborhood, good people. And I don't think I would like to have a B&B in my backyard after I've lost my home twice and then rebuilt, and then have some people coming in to the area to put up a B&B not knowing what we're going to get around us.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Little. Any other comments or questions?
Question
for the
for
board?
the staff. Who issues a B&B license?
Well, if the board approves this application, then we would issue an occupational license. What the applicant is speaking to is there's some other licensing out there. I think there's some either hotel license or hotel
So did
tax.
anything that came through
Our department,
this?
no.
Okay.
So if they've already been occupying it previously, so what you're saying is, and help me, so you should have had an occupational license?
Well, yeah, normally, before anyone starts a bed and breakfast or anything like that, short-term rental,
Right.
they would need to come through our office to determine, number one, are they in the correct zone? Or if it's not, what sort of procedure would they have to go through to get that approved, the use of the property approved, which they're doing at this time. It's sort of backwards, but they're doing it. So if that was approved, if the exception is approved, then they would make an application for an occupational license, and we would issue that, based on that.
So it's kind of the horse before the, how do you say that?
Cart
The
before the
horse
horse.
before the cart kind of thing here?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's what I want to know, thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am.
Yes.
Do they have any rules and regulations that you have to go by for these B&Bs?
Not under parish ordinance. Under parish ordinance, we have a definition of what a bed and breakfast is, and it's basically a short-term rental, but there's no specific rules for these types of things. Those are all determined by the property owner,
Thank you. Ms. Cobb, any other questions or comments by the board? Okay. At this time, Ms. Stephanie, roll call vote.
Ms. Hyatt? Mr. Little?
No?
Mr. Vincent?
No.
Mr. Williams?
Yes. Yes.
Ms. Winey?
No.
Mr. Smith?
No.
Ms. Cobb?
No.
Mr. DeBrock?
No.
Ms. Galicia?
No.
1 for, 8 against.
The motion fails. At this time, we're going to take at this time, we're going to take a recess. We're going to let you, if you'd like to excuse yourself at this time, we'll let you do that, and we'll take a 3-minute recess so we can continue with the session. Thank y'all. Item on the agenda, take appropriate action on the following application, 8100 block of frontage road in Ward 8 to rezone from agricultural A1 to central business commercial C3 and heavy industrial I2 to allow commercial industrial development, reception facility, intensive recreational facilities, open rodeo arena, 2 borrow pits, and bulk material storage. Applicant, Mr. Lewis, LLC, ETAL, RZ 12230259. I'll entertain a motion for approval with conditions. A motion made by Ms. Cobb and seconded by Mrs. Hyatt. Mrs. Tunn?
This property is in Iway, encompasses approximately 236 acres of agricultural zone land. The applicant intends to develop the vacant land into commercial and heavy industrial development. The development will consist of a reception facility with event venue, an intensive recreational facility, rodeo arena, 2 one-acre borrow pits, and stockpiling of bulk materials. The development will have a 100 to 150-foot tree buffer around the entire site according to the site plan on file. Because the development is consistent with the character of the area, the staff recommends the request be granted with the following conditions. That the development adheres to the site plan on file with the Division of Planning and Development, provided the director or designee may authorize adjustments to the site plan in light of technical or engineering considerations discovered during development. That a runoff management plan will be required unless appropriate waivers are granted by the Division of Engineering. And that all exterior lighting must be oriented inward toward the development, and the light source cannot be visible to the adjacent properties.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Dunn. If the applicant's present, and would like to speak, would you please come to the podium at this time? You're okay? Okay. Does the board have any questions or comments that you'd like to make? There's not any opposition, so at this time, all in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes. The next item on the agenda is take appropriate action on the following application: 2841, 3092, 3098, and 3104 East Napoleon Street in Ward 4 to rezone from general commercial C2 to light industrial I1 to allow industrial development, contractor shop, and storage yard. Applicant is Philip Gazino, ETAL RZ 1223-0260. I'll entertain a motion for approval with condition.
Second.
So, motion made by Ms. Cobb and seconded by Ms. Hyatt. Mrs. Dunn?
This property is in Sulphur on East Napoleon Street. The applicant owns multiple commercial buildings on the property and intends to utilize them as a contractor's office, shop, and storage yard. In order for this development to move forward, the applicant will need board approval to rezone to light industrial. Because minimal impacts are to be expected, the staff recommends the request be granted with the condition that a 6-foot screening is required along the south property line in accordance with Section 2650 of the Parish Code of Ordinances.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Dunn. The applicants here would like to speak? You may please come to the podium. You're okay? Okay, thank you. Does the board have any comments or questions or anything?
I have a question in regards
Sure,
to.
Mr. Little?
This property is backing up against a subdivision. The closest you could get to looking and see, there's a right-of-way, it looks like, with a ditch between that subdivision fence and those woods. Is that a lateral for drainage, or does his property come all the way up against the back of this? We're going to have access to be able to get in there if it does belong to the drainage board?
Philip, do you know? If you want to. I'm not familiar if there's a drainage lateral that goes through there, if there's a ditch.
It just looks like a ditch looking at it from the.
I'm Philip Gazino at 4319 Edgewater Drive in Lake Charles. That ditch back there, I can't tell you who owns that property. I don't know, to be honest with you. I think the Palermos owned that when they did the subdivision, and they had that set up as a lateral for drainage and stuff. And it's easily accessible from my property. It's not accessible from all the other properties around there. I'm about the only one opened up to it, but no one's ever been back there to do anything. All the landowners either take care of the cleaning the ditch out, or there's very little debris gets in there. Even after the hurricane, there was not much in it, so.
Okay.
We can verify whether it's actually in a
I would think that
lateral.
there's going to, do we need to do any drainage plans or all of this, or being it's an established business, is all that out of the
It's
window?
really already established, and I believe the building.
Everything is
It's
existing.
already
He's not,
existing.
he's not planning to make any changes, just the use of the buildings.
And just to let you know, there is a ditch between my properties that I didn't even know it, but I signed off on years ago in the Palermos to use it as a guaranteed drainage, so I can't even do anything with it. But that is part of it. That goes from that lateral across the backside, goes north to Highway 90.
Yes, sir. Okay. While I've got you, you're going to do a fabrication shop of some sort, I understand? Is that what
We were, and I think that's changing. I think a company out of Baton Rouge is going to use it just to store their, they do work for AT&T and,
Because my question was going to be working hours and that type of stuff with this neighborhood backed up to you. We're gonna have some kind of interference with noises and whatnot?
No,
To the
no,
neighbors.
these guys are 8 to 5 guys, go out during the day and do their work, and most of them head on home after that.
Thank you, Madam Chair, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Is there any other questions by the board? We do not have any opposition at this time, so if all in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Motion. Say it again? Oh, any opposed, sorry. Any opposed? Okay. Okay. Motion passes. Thank you. Motion passes. Okay. Next, we're going to receive report from the staff regarding proposed amendments to Chapter 26 of the Calcasieu Parish Code of Ordinances. Yes, sir.
Madam Chairman, just real briefly, Dana Watkins, you come up.
He wants me to make this very boring.
I just want to introduce Dana.
Yeah.
Dana Watkins, she's our floodplain manager for the parish. And she's been working very diligently, her and her staff, to get these amendments done, really based on FEMA requirements. And so I'll let her take it. I'm not gonna say anything else.
Make this quick so we can go home, huh? All right, why are these changes being made? Basically, it's to maintain compliance with the National Flood Insurance Program, just as Wes said. This is coming down from FEMA, so this is not anything that we have just kind of dreamed up and decided to go with. It's also to maintain present participation or rating in the community rating system. So we're at a Class 8, and we want to at least maintain our 8, and so those are the two reasons why. What is changing? And I really only put what is the most impactful. So in your packet, you're going to see a long ordinance with lots of red stuff in it. That is just a lot of things where we took our definitions and moved them back into the floodplain ordinance instead of in general in Chapter 26. So we did add some definitions in per FEMA. What is most impactful is accessory and agricultural structures and what we're going to be doing inside the manufactured homes in the parks. So accessory and agricultural structures, the way that we're having to treat those now is that, as FEMA has stated, those buildings, accessory and agricultural, are defined as non-residential. So according to their regulations previously, you could only floodproof or elevate, dry floodproof or elevate those two buildings. We have always had, in our ordinance since 1978, the ability to put openings in them, which is called wet floodproofing. Okay, so that's the difference, wet floodproofing. Now, in 2020, FEMA came out, as it is a nationwide issue, and they have basically put in a publication stating how we need to treat these two types of structures. So, in essence, this only applies to the special flood hazard areas, so we would not be applying our freeboard elevation like we have been to accessory and agricultural structures. But they have a clear definition of what those two structures are, what they mean, and their uses to them. So they're making them, consistent. I think you were given a flow chart, so it works pretty easily, and we're going to give that to internal staff to be able to use. We are now having to limit the size of accessory buildings, that we will simply just allow them to put wet floodproofing measures in. If it exceeds that size, then that means they would have to go for some type of a variance, okay, which is a separate process. Agricultural structures, if an owner wants to wet floodproof, which is putting the openings in, those are now going to require a variance. Whereas before, we would allow them just in our ordinance to just wet floodproof. So now they would have to go through a process of a variance. So there, you may see some variances coming through more often now for those types of situations. So the size is very limited to the standard 2-car garage. They haven't pinned us down to a number, and they won't. They like to be gray. But in essence, we would have that flexibility internally if its use is as it is supposed to be and not residential in any sort of way, then we could sort of internally make that determination to the size. But we can't have these 2,400 square foot accessory buildings out there. We just won't be able to do that without some sort of variance. One of the last things is manufactured home parks, the individual installations. The way we did them before, the elevations of the pads, when they were initially created, the parks were created, they had to meet a certain elevation, right? The pads had to. Well, and we use the 36 inch rule of elevating manufactured homes, and that sufficed for the time being. But we had never required individual placements, elevation certificates. So now we will be asking for elevation certificates for each placement or replacement of a manufactured home in a park. So that'll be a little something new. We intend to reach out to the park owners and park managers, letting them know that this is something that's coming, so that they can inform their residents or potential residents of that. And those structures would have to meet the freeboard level, and that is measured at the bottom of the principal I-beam, which is underneath the structure. And lastly, just to kind of let you guys know, the state did adopt a 1-foot freeboard in all the special flood hazard areas. It was something that had been discussed for 2 to 3 years prior, and FEMA and the state kind of went toe-to-toe. It's not something that the state wanted to do because, you know, they didn't want to put it out as a law to the whole state. But we have the 1-foot freeboard, so we as staff have to make sure that we don't go anything below that 1 foot even still. So, are there any questions?
Mr. Little?
Yes.
Mobile homes, you mentioned 36 inches. Is that from grade to the bottom of that beam, or is that a 36-inch pad you have to put on top of grade?
Yeah, so Mr. Little, that no longer exists. In the new ordinances, that will no longer exist. So the bottom of the I-beam is what has to meet a freeboard level, which is 1 foot above the highest of a few measurements. And one of them is the FEMA base flood elevation that is on the map, and or the nearest street center line or sewer manhole cover. Those are the most common ones. So it has to be 1 foot above the highest of those.
All these changes being made will be for future, or is that for everything that's in the parish currently?
That, I'm not sure I understand your question quite.
Is it for future
for new.
buildings and construction?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
new.
yes. This is from here on out. Yes,
We're not
sir.
going to go back and tell people they got to.
No.
It's only,
Correct.
once it gets passed, it starts from that
Yes.
point.
Unless they do some kind, there's a percentage of some
Correct.
sort of a
Unless there's a
building, then it would fall into effect.
We have been in an audit with FEMA for the last 3 years, and we're still not complete. It's been grueling. I just wanted to kind of give you the timeline. So you guys, this is just an introduction to this at the moment. We don't really have a choice. So we will, though, we have it on our website, you know, for the public to see. Not that we would entertain any comment. We can have a comment, but it really doesn't mean anything. But March 19th, hopefully it will come across you to make final decision, and then moving it on to the police jury on the 21st, March 21st. And hopefully everything will work out well for April 4th to adopt. So, yes, sir.
Another question. Says, you mentioned something about a 2-car garage or square footage.
Yes, sir.
It says 100 square foot without variance. So the largest building will be 100 square foot before you come in and get a variance?
So the 2-car garage square footage for accessories will be in the A zone. So they would be AE zones. The 100 square feet for accessories is in the V zone, like Deatonville. They will not allow anything larger than 100 square feet on an accessory building, or you will have to go for a variance. That's correct.
Thank you, Mr.
And
Little.
Mr. Little, most of those structures in those areas, they're elevated on
Piers,
on
piles.
piers and
Yeah,
pylons. And so what they're talking about is that underneath area that some people close in,
Okay.
you know, for storage,
Right.
or use as an access to get up to the main building.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
All right.
Thank you, Dana.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is to advise that the police jury took the following action on December the 14th, 2023, with reference to the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Board from the December 12th, 2023 meeting. Lance Braxton, Planning and Zoning recommended approval, police jury denied. Kendall Broussard, Planning and Zoning recommended approval, police jury denied, approved, excuse me. Adopt amendments to Chapter 26 of the Calcasieu Parish Code of Ordinances. Planning and Zoning recommended approval, police jury approved. The next item on the agenda is to advise the next regularly scheduled Planning and Zoning meeting will be held on Tuesday, March the 19th, 2020. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Ms. Galicia made the motion and Mrs. Hyatt seconded it. Thank you, and the meeting is adjourned.